And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. We have had the first full week of baseball come and almost go. We have, one more slate of Sunday games here before the week is all finished. Quite a lot has happened since our last recording. We've had some really fun stuff happen. We've had some not so fun stuff happen. We've seen some interesting, standings, trends early in the season. Not that they're all gonna stay. Actually, no, they'll probably all stay. The Tigers will play like 800 ball probably, I think. Um, with like a borderline positive run differential. That'll probably happen, but everything else, we'll have to see how it stands. But it's been an interesting first week, and we're here to talk about some of the things that have since happened.
Yeah, for sure. And the hot topic in Major League Baseball is pitcher injuries because obviously they kind of were plaguing the season even before it even started. We obviously Sandy Alcantara we knew was going to be gone. Um, Jacob
Jacob
deGrom,
deGrom,
uh,
Max Scherzer.
yeah, and Felix Batista, the best reliever in baseball last year, he's out of it. So yeah, like it's obviously it's a thing we definitely don't see with position players. We don't see, we don't see like two of the top, 10 position players in baseball get, ravaged by a common injury. So yeah, it's definitely a subject matter to talk about. And yeah, it recently came about again because Shane Bieber it was announced he was getting Tommy John surgery. So was the case with Eury Perez, and then Spencer Strider was diagnosed with damage in his UCL. So yeah, lots going on. What are your thoughts on everything going on with the elbow injuries?
Yeah, it obviously sucks. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. There's been so much discourse around the causes of this, people speculating this or that. MLB Players Association put out a statement yesterday asking Major League Baseball to run essentially like a test study about the pitch clock and if there are effects there. MLB shot back saying there is no evidence to suggest this. That's been kind of the big hot button, like buzzword issue of this. Um, I don't know if it's the pitch clock or not. I think there are a lot of fact. I think it's multiple things. Like there is no one thing that you can point to and be like, "This is it." If we had a magic wand to get rid of this, it would all go away. That doesn't exist here. Spencer Strider went down this week, got an MRI, waiting to be further evaluated. Shane Bieber got Tommy John surgery this week. Eury Perez, like you mentioned earlier. I think there are a lot of factors, velocity and spin being one of them. No sticky substances on the ball can be another one for a lot of guys. That's what Tyler Glass now talked about a couple of years ago. And then, of course, the uh, elusive pitch clock is being talked about pretty widely as a potential issue.
Yeah, the pitch clock theory has been more popular as of late because I think yeah, didn't MLB shorten it by 2 seconds this year also?
Yes, which I never understood. Yeah, it's only when there's a runner on base, it went from 20 seconds down to 18. Which like
Okay.
the pitch clock already did its job last year. I don't see why they need to keep pressing forward with it.
Yeah, there's no I don't foresee any MLB.com articles being like we reduced time by 2 minutes this year. It was
Yeah, no.
absolutely
Like
insane.
I was to say, last year, the pitch clock did exactly what it was designed to do, and it, shortened the average length of a game quite significantly. And you heard all about it. Like they were marketing the heck out of that. There were attendance rises in 2023, and MLB.com was pushing the rule changes as a factor for that. Like there was everyone knew MLB marketed that more than they market anything else. The success of the rule changes last year, in terms of what they wanted to get out of them. I don't think we're going to see that this year with the pitch clock being shortened from 20 seconds to 18 seconds with a runner on base.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so yeah, regarding but yeah, so it's been more popular to talk about the pitch clock because it is so recent and there are, a lot of things a lot of things where you're like, um, you know, there were already a lot of potential reasons for causes, but this is kind of the newest one, and I could see definitely it being a small contributing factor because just you need in between pitches, you probably need a little bit of time to recover, especially if you're throwing, the some of the hardest pitches in the league, and you're doing something that maybe your body uh, doesn't agree with you doing necessarily. But uh, but also, yeah, it's a variety of factors, and I think there's a correlation between guys getting Tommy John and guys throwing high velocity. That's not necessarily the case with the guy like Shane Bieber, but Eury Perez, Spencer Strider, especially Jacob deGrom and Sandy Alcantara, like we mentioned earlier. Those are guys. Those are guys like that. I did see. I looked up like the leaders um, in fastball velocity last year, uh, as starting pitchers particularly, and seeing how many of them have gotten Tommy John surgery. And like you look at uh, pitchers with 500 plus starting pitchers with 500 plus four seamers thrown last year. The list goes Bobby Miller, then Hunter Green, who's had a Tommy John surgery in his professional career, Sandy Alcantara, who is recovering from Tommy John surgery, Eury Perez, who has Tommy John surgery, um, Spencer Strider, who has had Tommy John surgery in college and might get another one, unfortunately, Shane McClanahan, who is recovering from Tommy John surgery, Jesus Luzardo, who I looked up, actually had Tommy John surgery in high school, Grayson Rodriguez, luckily nothing yet, but Tyler Glass now is ninth on that list, and he has also gotten Tommy John surgery. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, it favors a little bit toward guys who throw harder, and it's just the natural function of baseball. It's an sort of unnatural movement, and it's unnatural to throw that violently and that fast. It's just our bodies haven't caught up to that yet.
Yeah, and it's such a difficult thing because you can't just really be like, oh, well, just don't throw as hard because you're trying to win baseball games here. Like velocity helps. It's like, it's like trying to run a marathon without shoes. Like, yeah, you can win. You can run a marathon without shoes, but you're gonna see how much it helps to
Yeah,
have them, right? That's kind of how it is with pitching and having high velocity. Like you look at every rotation, every bullpen, like there's, you know, a lot of guys that have high velocity. And it's especially gone up in the last couple of years. I mean, you can just look at the data's available for the average four seam fastball velocity over the last 15 years. There's been like a 3 mile per hour increase since 2008. I'll pull it up right now while I'm talking about it. But like, it's become such an essential part of the game where you really just cannot win without it now because hitters have advanced to the point where they can hit pretty much anything that's below 95 to a well above league average rate. But once it starts getting above that high velocity, then it becomes a lot more difficult and there's a lot more neutral results there.
right. Yeah, and yeah, and there's an obvious, effectiveness within it. I think like we talk about, how it's hard, obviously harder to hit faster pitches, but let's look at fastballs 91 to 92, and the batting average and slugging against it last year. I could probably just
Yeah, you can pull it up. While you're pulling that up, in
yeah.
2008, the first year of the pitch tracking era, the average four seam fastball velocity was 91.9 miles per hour. In 2024, so far, it is up to 94 miles an hour. I would imagine it was probably the same in 2023. So it's at 94.2 miles an hour in 2023. So you might look at that and think, well, that's a 2 mile an hour difference. What does it matter? When you have a sample size of like 200,000 pitches a year, that is a massive sample size, actually. And that is a massive sample size, and it is a massive change in the average. Because yeah, that is a very large jump. With that larger sample size. So like velocity has become a more integral part of pitching. We had this discourse like 3 years ago where batting averages were down, and we were trying to figure out why. and all of the people were screaming because pitchers are so good. And maybe we're at a point where like pitchers are too good for their own safety at this point.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah, like you need, pitchers need to throw harder because it's obviously more effective. And looking at the league data from 2023, when it was 91 to 92, I think you tweeted this out actually after I think Chris Bassett made some comments, but fastballs at 91 to 92 were slugged on at a 490 clip. When you move that to 95 to 96, it's 412. And when you move that to 98 to 99, that's 341. So there's an obvious correlation between faster pitches and hitters having a harder time with it. So, you know, we can talk about how maybe pitchers can ease off, but if Spencer Strider was averaging 94 in his fastball, he might not be in the league right now. That's part of his specialty, and he doesn't earn that, $75 million contract that he did in his rookie year, and he's not able to, provide as much for his family. So yeah, like it's just a weird catch 22 that we've reached with pitching where it's almost just harder for it's just a real complicated situation where you need to do it, but there's obvious consequences with it.
Yeah, I mean it's a very confusing and strange situation where I don't know how they're going to navigate it if they're going to. The thing that I saw someone suggest on Twitter was like, prime Justin Verlander would like, start out throwing like 94, 95 early in his starts and then dial it up later in his starts. And it's like, okay, that's fair. Are pitchers capable of doing that and getting to the third time through the order? I don't know, right? Because since prime Verlander, we've now had this shift in starting pitching culture where you're using a bullpen a lot more. You're having guys face the order a third time a lot less. Can you get to a third time through the order if your fastball is whatever it is? The solution might be to throw less fastballs. The solution also might be to figure out what to do with the baseballs because the other big thing is looking for spin, right? You're not only are you looking for velocity, but you're looking for spin. You have to grip the baseball a certain way that can be unhealthy. That's why a lot of guys use foreign substances, and that was a big thing back in 2021 that MLB. I think MLB never wanted to touch that, but it just became a huge media thing, and they were kind of given no choice. Um, because I don't know, with the way that MLB went about the whole sticky stuff scandal, you could tell that like their heart just wasn't in it with that one. And I think it was because they kind of knew like, no, I think because hitters were never complaining about it. Like pitchers complained plenty about the Astros sign stealing scandal. Pitchers and hitters alike complained about steroids when that was the thing. You never really saw too many hitters being like, yeah, it's impossible to hit because all these pitchers are using these substances. And it was a very, very known thing for decades. So I think there needs to be some sort of solution to where there is some sort of compromise where it's like, yeah, you're not using foreign substances so you can gain 300 RPM, but you're using them so you can stay safe and grip the baseball in a way that's more comfortable and healthy on your arm.
Yeah, for sure. Something that's universal and can be monitored by the league. Definitely like that, that could be a thing. And yeah, something you mentioned to me was like how Tyler Glass now referenced that rule change as to part of the reason why he got Tommy John surgery. And I think there's at the time I sort of understood where he was coming from, where if you're gripping a ball tighter, that's more tension on your arm and makes it more vulnerable, obviously. So I could definitely see a little bit with that, especially with a midseason rule change and where pitchers didn't have time to really train in a different way. But yeah, like yeah, it's a real interesting thing to navigate. I don't think it's necessarily because of I don't think it's all because of lack of knowledge on how to treat elbows. I think it's just the or at least the evolution of pitching has outpaced that research on how to keep things healthy.
It absolutely has. Dr. James Andrews, the guy that was widely known for being like the face of Tommy John surgeries. Like if you heard that name, you knew it was bad news. He retired recently and did an interview with Anthony Castrovins, where he talked about like the state of Tommy John surgeries, where he said it's happening in high school pitchers now, like more than ever. Where he said like when you're in high school, like the development of like the ligament that you get Tommy John surgery on, it doesn't actually mature until you're 26, which is like for some pitchers, that's like the fourth or fifth year of their career in the majors at that point. Like Spencer Strider is probably around, probably not even 26 at this point. He's probably like 25 years old, I would imagine. Um, and he said that if you're in high school, like the hardest you should be throwing on that ligament is 80. And from upstate New York, where we get essentially no major league talent, I was facing 80-mile-an-hour pitchers in high school. And I'm sure it's a lot worse in Florida and Arizona, in Texas, and all of these big baseball states. There are probably high school pitchers that throw 90. Um, so yeah, it's becoming an epidemic in the majors. James Andrews says it's much more of an epidemic in high school, which I can understand why it would be. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think this, this velocity and spin stuff is definitely a large part of it. It has to be. But it is tricky in terms of how we navigate a solution here.
Right, right. And I don't think it's necessarily like a flaw on how we view pitching. Like it's just I think the emphasis on velocity for high school pitchers, it's because, colleges look at that and they see the upside and you see like, we can coach this guy to make him a good pitcher if he's throwing the velocity we want him to. Whereas, if you have a slower velocity, it's way harder to train that up than to train someone's command or secondary pitches up. So yeah, and that's for high school pitchers, that could be the difference of going to college for free or paying for college. That's
Yeah.
that's a thing. So like there's a lot of implications with that, and yeah, it's definitely a weird conundrum.
Did we talk about the Nationals, like, I don't care how hard you throw ball four thing on this show?
We didn't really go
Okay, yeah,
into
because
it.
my input on that was like, no, you should care about that because if a pitcher has high velocity but little command, that's a thing that a team can fix. But if they have good command and not a lot of velocity, that's not really a thing that a team can fix. Like a team can't just really no, there's less that a team can do to get a guy out of throwing 91 instead of missing the strike zone a lot. Um, and fundamentally, like the one with velocity just has more upside. So like, yeah, I think the Nationals R&D department does in fact how hard someone throws ball for.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And I don't know how deep into the season it was, but they actually led in like a fastball velocity, which was funny. So I guess
Yep.
I guess they didn't go too deep into the Mike Rizzo hole.
I'm pretty sure it's this season actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's this season. Um, but yeah, anything more on the pitcher injury cycle?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the pitch clock thing, the thing that annoys me is like people talk about the pitch clock being the problem as if it never existed before 2020, 2023. Like the pitch clock was in the minors. It was in every level of the minor leagues. It was in the Arizona Fall League. Pitchers were getting acclimated to it well before the majors. And to my knowledge, I don't think there was ever an uptick in minor league Tommy Johns during that time. If there was, I'm sure someone would have been all over it right before Major League Baseball brought it in with how big of a topic it was. Um, so people don't throw as hard in the minors as they do in the majors fundamentally. Like the guys that do throw hard in the minors likely actually make it to the majors. So, uh, the velocity is probably not as high there. I can't imagine. I could probably look that up right now actually, but um, yeah, like it was never an issue down there, so I don't see why it only became an issue in the majors if that's the leading cause.
Yeah, and then it kind of goes without saying also that pitcher injuries also were also skyrocketing before 2023, before the pitch clock was brought into MLB. I think we were already
Mhm.
talking about how a lot of Tommy John surgeries were happening before that, on this podcast in 2022, 2021, like guys like Last Now and well, every member of the Rays pitching staff, as well as like Walker Bueller. Like, yeah, guys were just going down and
Yeah.
it seemed to be happening more frequently, and maybe it's catalyzed a little bit by the pitch clock, but I don't think it's the sole reason.
From 2021 to 22 in AAA, the average four-seam fastball velocity was 92.4 miles per hour. In MLB, I would imagine it was at least a mile an hour more than that. So, I mean, there's your answer right there, not the pitch clock, or at least if it's the pitch clock, not a leading factor.
Yeah, probably not. Um, yeah, anything more before we talk about uh talk about something else?
No, I think that's about it for this.
Yeah, yeah, so another hot topic previous to some of the pitcher news that we just talked about, but it was earlier in the week. The Oakland or yeah, the Oakland Athletics are going to
The
be
Athletics.
the Athletics are moving from Oakland to West Sacramento. They will not be going by the Sacramento A's. They'll be going by the Athletics, as you point out. But yeah, and some real fun. John Fisher talking in the media stuff going on. Great quotes. What are your takeaways from all this?
I mean, like John Fisher is truly an incredible human being in that he spoke to the media for 2 minutes without taking questions and still made a complete fool out of himself in like the first public appearance he's had in so long. Like the guy just can't stop tripping over himself in every single facet of what he does. We haven't dove too deep into the A's relocation. We talked about it last April when they were officially moving to Vegas. And this, I think, I mean, there's a lot to say about it, right? You know, I think Chris and I are on the same page of we think the A's belong in Oakland. We think that John Fisher has not made himself look like the greatest businessman in the last year and a half of not having renderings in Vegas, not having an actual plan of where to go, despite knowing that the lease on the Coliseum was ending this year, trying to like improvise space on the Vegas Strip and then outside the Strip and having like three different stadium ideas that all look AI generated. Um, all of that. But in the end, they are moving to a AAA minor league park in Sacramento, where the River Cats play. That is the AAA affiliate of the Giants, I believe. And I mean, I've long been of the belief that Oakland deserves a Major League Baseball team not run by John Fisher. This is a guy that has built a objectively terrible team, right? I mean, terrible in that they don't win, but also that there is really nothing to get exciting about. Like we both chose Mason Miller as our player to watch, despite being a top 100 prospect and the consensus organizational top prospect, because that's really all there was. Like that was us being brutally honest and being like, if you want any reason to watch the Oakland A's, pick the couple eighth and ninth innings throughout the year where they happen to have a lead because this guy looks pretty fun and he has been to his credit. And during this press conference, John Fisher announced that the A's will be moving to a AAA park. The quote that, of course, stuck out to the public, and this was taken a bit out of context. The actual context certainly doesn't help, but he's saying that he can't wait to watch players like Aaron Judge hit homers in this ballpark. Now, the actual context was him saying, "We can't wait to watch, great Major League Baseball players, whether they be athletics players or Aaron Judge or whoever." Blah blah blah. This you can't do that. You can't do that, and I get that it's probably not safe to name a single athletics bat because there's not one guy in that lineup that you can safely say is going to be on the team come next year when they are in that ballpark. You just don't even say anything at all. I mean, like, I view this whole thing as John Fisher kind of treating his city and his team like a tour for the rest of Major League Baseball to come through and for their city to see the best MLB teams and players, right? Where it's like it's sort of like the Harlem Globetrotters, where it's like it's kind of like an inverse of that, where it's instead of this team going to all of these cities and doing this fun thing, it's a reverse where this city is hosting all these MLB teams and all these players. Look at that. We got Mike Trout coming in twice a year. We got Jose Altuve coming in twice a year. Julio Rodriguez, Corey Seager, Aaron Judge will come in next year. Shohei Ohtani might come in next year. Don't worry about the team that we're fielding, but look at all these fun players that are going to be in Sacramento. They're going to be in this ballpark. It's a minor league ballpark, so it's going to be even more up close and personal. Like that's how I view John Fisher in this context here.
No, yeah, absolutely. It does seem like that, like how like a concert venue would advertise like,
Yeah.
oh, they're on tour. Yankees are coming to town. How about that?
Yeah, that's actually that's a way better analogy. But yeah, where it's like a big concert venue being like, look at all the artists we got coming in this year at our place. They're gonna be right here in this building, and you're probably gonna see them hit some homers, and that's exciting.
We got Ken Waldachuk serving up pitches for them, but
Exactly. Yeah.
they're the real entertainment. The the Yankees and the Astros. And yeah, with John Fisher, it's kind of funny because we do like we do kind of villainize a lot of these owners, rightfully so in a certain context, but he really is like the cartoon villain of owners. Like
He's the final boss.
like everything you could think about bad with an owner, it is exemplified with him. And it's that the whole moving process has emphasized that. But yeah, it really like you can't really do much worse at all than John Fisher.
I mean, like the A's hid the replies on their Twitter account. Like even when they tweet highlights, like Brent Rooker hit a home run yesterday. If you're an actual A's fan that doesn't care about all this moving stuff and you just enjoy watching the team and you wanted to comment like, "Hey, that's a big hit," you can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
like they're like John Fisher has been so loud in terms of saying the quiet part. Like he has said the quiet part out loud in terms of I want to make money and I'm owning this team because Major League Baseball is so profitable. And I don't really care to acknowledge the fact that I also have a fan base of supporters that give me these profits that, depend on the work that I do to go about their livelihoods, go about their day during the months of April through October, that I am kind of just hanging out to dry here.
Right, right. Yeah, and yeah, it's pretty rough over there in Oakland. And yeah, there's obviously nothing that the commissioner is gonna really be able to do about it, because he was voted in by owners. If he has any acts against an owner, it's gonna be taken negatively. He'll be taken out of his job. Um,
You gotta
yeah,
remember the owners voted unanimously in support of this last summer.
yeah,
Like you might be like, hey, Steve Cohen's one of the good ones. No, he supports this. He's all in on the A's moving to Vegas. He might disagree with the way in which John Fisher went about it, but at the end of the day, he recognizes, hey, this is a good move because you know what? This obscenely rich guy is going to get marginally more wealthy, and that wealth will be distributed among the owners at the end of the year when we make another, record revenue year. We make $11 billion this time instead of just 10,
yeah.
right? Like that's like just remember every single owner supported this. Not a single one saw what was happening, saw the way that the fan base in the city was being strong armed, and manipulated and said, well, we gotta step in here. Every single one of them, all 30, without any sort of contest, supports this.
Yeah, there wasn't really much of a conversation surrounding it from their end. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, there aren't really any of the quote unquote good ones. It's just ones who suck the least. But
Pretty
yeah.
much.
Um
The main point that I wanted to drive home here is that this whole thing has set a very dark precedent in Major League Baseball because there are plenty of teams that have threatened relocation as a tactic to scare the public into dumping more, taxpayer dollars into new stadiums or renovations to stadiums. We've seen it done so many times. Arizona did it there during spring training this year. Milwaukee did it a couple of years ago. The Orioles did it before they sold the team because their lease on Camden Yards was ending. Seattle did it, 25 years ago in the 1990s. And most of the time that this is done, it's empty threats. Because going into public stadium discourse, right? A lot of stadiums are funded in part by taxpayers. And as a taxpayer, what benefits are you really getting from funding these stadiums? You still have to pay the full admission price to get in. You still have to pay for parking. You still have to pay for your ticket. You still have to uh, you still have to pay for concessions in full price. The owners are the ones that gets the profit from it, even though they don't fund all of the stadium. And yeah, you might want to go there and you might want to go enjoy your team in this nice venue. It's not a guarantee that, by the way, the team's going to be good. It's not a guarantee that the owner is going to invest in the on-field product. It's not a guarantee that anyone is going to have a real desire to win. Like there is essentially no benefit to and that's just the ones that actually even care about the sport. Like there are taxpayers that don't watch sports, that don't care about where their team plays. There are taxpayers that don't know a single player on the team, the name of the team, where they play. Like people don't care. Um, but the reality is there are, most stadiums are in some way publicly funded, some more than others. And that was ultimately the deciding factor in John Fisher leaving Oakland, was that the public didn't want to pay for his stadium that only he was going to get the benefits of, right? Like Howard Terminal was a project that the city tried to push for a while. Um, John Fisher had a hard line of the public needs to pay X amount. They didn't want to do that, understandably. And ultimately, this disagreement was over a 3-year and $35 million extension on the lease of the Oakland Coliseum. I think it was Mark Craig. I don't want to discredit whoever said it, but someone said it was like the price that the Angels paid for Robert Stevenson. It was Buster Olney. That's who it was. Buster Olney literally said like the disagreement on the A's and the city of Oakland in extending the lease of the Coliseum was the price of Robert Stevenson, and all of this was done so that a very wealthy man could get marginally more wealthy. So I mean, that's the precedent that this is set, and this has been a very long tangent, but the actual last point I wanted to make was the precedent that this sets, because there are a lot of small market owners that are now watching this unfold, seeing that you can actually relocate the team to a more desirable location where you might make some more profits. And in doing so, you can spend as little money as possible on the on-field product. You can alienate the fan base. You can alienate the city, pin the blame on them when they don't want to see the product that you don't invest in, and get the things you want with the league on your side while facing essentially no accountability, because that is what just unfolded in Oakland. And all of these small market owners that will at times, threaten relocation as a way to scare the public into paying more funds. They're looking at that and thinking, good to know. Good to
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah, especially, all the owners that don't really pay too much mind to funding their MLB team or MLB roster at least. And yeah, like yeah, I mean, luckily the Orioles are under new ownership, but yeah, like looking at teams like Pittsburgh, Cleveland,
Kansas City is another one that like just rejected a public measure to fund a new stadium.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it definitely, yeah, that is a good point in that now that is being a little bit rewarded, which is very unfortunate for all the fans of different cities. So yeah, it's a really tough scene. Yeah, anything more?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the last point going into all this is like if you're a fan of a small market team, or even like in some measures like a mid-level market team, like you should not think that your city is immune to what just happened in Oakland. Like it can, I know that Oakland is has been thrown around as kind of like the bottom of the barrel MLB market, like the very last one, the team that plays in the worst stadium spends the least amount of money. has the least attendance. Like just because it happened to them doesn't mean it can't happen to several other franchises in this sport.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we see owners in big markets. We've seen owners in big markets be a little bit disappointing. The Will Ponds, John Henry recently. So yeah, I mean it can be a little bit of a domino effect. Um, so yeah, that's all the news with the Oakland A's. Very, very unfortunate, but yeah, we're just moving along here. Still don't know if they're going to Vegas, but they're going to be in Sacramento for 3 years.
With
Um,
a fourth year option, by the way, which I think is the funniest part of it.
that's
Like that's an insurance year that John Fisher's like, we might need to use.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, But in other AOS news, before we get into players to highlight, one player who, not really, I don't think too many baseball fans had even heard of before Monday night, but one particular Astro had himself a night, threw a no-hitter. Ronel Blanco threw a no-hitter. It was only 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Had a very good night. It was a very Gianta approved no-hitter. He
I
did
was
not
gonna
have
say, I was looking at the stat cast and I was like, you know what? This is a valid one.
it was a very, very valid no-hitter. I'll accept a couple, you know, uh above 500 expected batting averages, but he had zero. Everything every batted ball he allowed had an expected batting average of 490 or below. Like that is a really, really valid no-hitter. He had 20 batted balls against, 12 were ground balls, which is 60%, and then 4 were pop-ups, which is 20%. He had an excellent night. And yeah, should be very celebrated.
Yeah, I mean, not only did he have only one batted ball above 490, but he had only one above 400 and three that were at least 300. Like he had a really, really good night in terms of batted balls. The sweet spot percentage against, I'll try to find. But the hard hit rate was just 20% on the night. The exit
Yeah.
velocity was not moving at all. Only four hard hit balls allowed. Um, and in terms of those hard hit balls, one of them was a -9 degree ground out. One of them was a 17-degree line out, and that was the 490. That was the most unfortunate one for the Blue Jays. One of them was a 40-degree pop out that was never going to be hit. One of them was a -5 degree ground out. So yeah, only one like truly like man, that one could have been a hit type ball, and it was a line out off the bat of Isaiah Kiner Falefa in the third.
Yeah, and according to StatCast, 51% chance of not being a hit. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
it's still more likely it isn't a hit anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. I didn't read too much into his. So I forget if Ronel Blanco is um has a crazy amount of a story, but also this is a guy. Yeah, he was not really supposed to be in the opening day rotation, I would imagine. I mean, Justin Verlander being on the shelf
He
is
started the fifth game of the year, so
yeah, Justin Verlander being on the shelf is a factor. Yeah, didn't really have much major league experience before this, but I mean, it looked really good in this one start in which he was facing a pretty good lineup in the Blue Jays. Like that is that's a very good lineup over there. Yeah, he had only thrown 58 and a third MLB innings prior to this. So yeah, maybe he's starting today. He's starting Sunday, so I mean, we'll see how these next starts go because this was a really, really good performance. I think he may have made some changes to his pitching approach, unless I'm wrong about that. Yeah, he threw his changeup 34% of the time as opposed to 9% last
oh
year.
yeah.
And that's something that Christian Javier also added was a changeup. So maybe that's something the Astros
How many total times did he throw his changeup last year?
in total he threw it 81 times.
Okay, so he almost reached half that in one start.
Yeah. Yeah. So so yeah, so maybe this change in approach is going to help him out in the long term because yeah, as I mentioned, last episode, Christian Javier increased his changeup usage as well. So maybe that's something that the Astros are kind of working on with some of their pitchers. But it seemed to work out. Guys just weren't hitting the ball hard. His average exit velocity against was 84.5 miles per hour, which is really low. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty refreshing to watch. Like really cool, pretty good story in that he wasn't supposed to really start. So yeah, really good stuff over there.
Yeah, no, very, very good no hitter. I know it's very weird to suggest that like some are better than others, but they kind of are. But Ronel Blanco, very, very good night. 20 swings and misses, 14 called strikes, a called strike and whiff rate of 32%, which is solid. 42% on his changeup, which was his most commonly used pitch. So, yeah, he had all the stuff working for him that night. And yeah, really only one ball that could have been a hit, but even still more likely an out.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And anytime you talk about any of this stuff, like I get voices in my head from like
Tyler
people
Gilbert.
people who like don't care about that stuff being like, well, an out's an out,
Yeah.
if it's a no hit is a no hitter, but there's no hitters where it's generated by weak contact and strikeouts as opposed to, it just found a lot of gloves. Obviously, that'll have to happen most of the time. It's not like he had an expected batting average of exactly zero, but still, like, it's way better than, Tyler Gilbert, who I think had six batted balls above 500 expected batting average. Like he just gave up hard hit line drive after hard hit line drive, and they just happen to find gloves. So some of them is just like luck of the draw, but this one was very, very well earned. Like that is going to be a no hitter. Like those batted balls are going to generate a no hitter a lot of times. So yeah, anything more before we move on to players to highlight?
I think that is it.
Yeah, all good. So yeah, now we will start. So yeah, we will get into the players to highlight, starting with the lows because we want to end with the highs. But now we will get into our Sunday, April 7, 2024 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
slightly alarming.
Completely forgot we were going slightly alarming first. So for my slightly alarming, I am going with a guy that did miss a couple games with an injury, a brief day-to-day stint, but still just has not gotten anything going whatsoever. I'm talking about Max Kepler from the Twins. He has really been struggling this year. In 21 plate appearances, he is slashing 050, 095, 050 for a 145 OPS and a negative 63 weighted runs created plus. He ranks dead last in OBP, OPS, and weighted runs created plus among the 255 hitters with at least 20 plate appearances. Max Kepler has a 28.6% pop-up rate out of 14 fly balls. 28% of them have been pop-ups. That is the third highest ranking among the 294 hitters with at least 10 plate appearances so far this year. He also has a 42.9% fly ball rate, and the average exit velocity on his fly balls has been 87.4%, and that is never going to cut it. Because of all this, he is ranked in the first percentile of expected weighted on base average at 116, expected batting average at 083, expected slugging at 119, and barrel rate because he simply has not barreled the ball up yet. 40.4% of all pitches he has seen this year has been breaking balls, which is a 9% increase over last year. And so far, he has 9 plate appearances against breaking balls. 5 of them have been strikeouts. The other 4 have been batted balls that had an average exit velocity of 82.2 miles per hour and an average launch angle of 51 degrees. So that's also never going to cut it in any sense at all. Kepler has also gone the opposite way on 50% of his batted balls, which is tied for the third highest rate on that aforementioned list of 294 hitters with at least 10 plate appearances. So in short, what I'm trying to say is his timing has been off. He's not hitting the ball well at all. When he's hitting the ball, he also does have a high strikeout rate, a very low walk rate. Yeah, things just are not working for him so far.
Yeah, Max Kepler.
Slightly alarming.
And very unfortunate following up a kind of offensive definitely an offensive bounce back season last year in which he increased his OPS by I think like 150 points.
with good
So
expected numbers to go with it.
yeah, with good expected numbers. I think may have underperformed his expected numbers a little bit also. Um, so yeah, my slightly alarming is another AL Central outfielder. And it's gotten to a weird point where I don't even know if he qualifies necessarily, but he has a bigger name. So I'll talk about Andrew Benintendi and his rough start to the season. Noted, contact hitter, but hitting.
Noted largest contract in White Sox history.
Oh yeah, 5 years, $75 million. He is hitting 094, slugging 094, and has a 215 OPS. That would be a bad batting average, but he has a 215 OPS. Out of 206 qualifiers, his on base percentage is the lowest. His slugging is sixth lowest, and OPS is third lowest. And out of 207 hitters with 100 plus pitches seen, his expected WOBA is third lowest. That's the expected metric that kind of accounts for how you're getting on base and how effectively you're getting on base and how many bases are taken. Also, only 15% of his batted balls have been in the sweet spot, which is fourth lowest out of 78 hitters with 25 plus batted balls. That's an important statistic because Benintendi kind of thrives on being able to hit the ball at the right launch angle, getting line drives, getting low fly balls. I think he was around 40% last year, and he's at 15% right now. So if he's not able to hit line drives, he's not really an effective hitter at all. He also has a 58% ground ball rate right now, which is sixth highest out of 78. So yeah, Andrew Benintendi getting a
slightly alarming.
But you could argue that kind of started last year because he did not have a great year last year either. So yeah, now we go from the lows to the highs, where we will be talking players that have been really doing well to start the season. Now for our Sunday, April 7, 2024 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a
How about that?
Yeah, so for my How About That on this fine Sunday, I am talking about a guy that I've kind of like as a player had a crush on since like even before he was a big leaguer. So very happy to see that he's been doing well to start this season. I am talking about MJ Melendez of the Kansas City Royals, one of my favorites from before even day one. In 31 plate appearances so far this season, he is slashing 321, 387, 679 for a 1066 OPS and a 197 weighted runs created plus. So far, he has a 40.9% fly ball rate, and his fly balls have an average exit velocity of 95.8 miles per hour. His average exit velocity is 94.5 miles per hour, which gives him 98th percentile, 690 expected slugging. So that's fantastic. He has also dropped his strikeout rate from 28.2% last year to 19.4% this year. So he's actually making contact at a higher rate and making better contact overall. Only 44% of pitches thrown to him have been in the strike zone, which is a drop from 49.6% last year. And although he is chasing at roughly the same rate, his chase contact percentage has gone up from 47.6% to 72.2%. The league average is around 58.8%. So he probably won't stay at 72%, but if he can be better than last year, which was over 10% below league average, that would be fantastic for him. He has dropped his whiff rate as well from 34.4% last year to just 25.9% this year, again, going into those strikeout numbers. And last year, after getting thrown 30.8% breaking balls and hitting 174 with a 35% whiff rate against them, he is now only seeing breaking balls at a 16.8% rate, which is the third lowest rate among the 207 hitters with at least 100 pitches seen, a list that Chris mentioned in his slightly alarming. So for whatever reason, pitchers, it probably just happens to be the pitchers that he's facing, but he just hasn't seen a heavy dose of breaking balls. And he's clearly been taking advantage because he is seeing a more accelerated rate of fastballs, and his whiff rate against fastballs has gone from 34.2% last year to 19.2% this year. And he is also hitting 417 with a slugging percentage of 833 against all fastballs. And again, against all fastballs, he has a run value of 4.0, and that ranks tied for 11th among the 271 hitters with at least 10 plate appearances ending on fastballs, and his 5.2 run value per 100 ranks 13th. So all in all, MJ Melendez is getting a more favorable dose of pitches. He's taking advantage of that, striking out less, swinging and missing less, hitting the ball harder, hitting the ball in the air at a much higher rate. And it's been proving to give him some really nice results, even out there in Kauffman.
Yeah, MJ Melendez.
How about that?
It's good to see him starting to succeed a little bit more because he I think it was 2021 or 2022 2021 where he led the minors in home runs, right? So yeah, like he was coming up, and yeah, him succeeding now does make a good bit of sense. My how about that? This is kind of interesting to like pick this guy because I have him highly ranked as a player, but as a hitter, he had a 100 OPS plus last year, so I think he's eligible for how about that because we're really talking about hitting here when we're talking about a position player. So that is why I'm talking about my number 15 player in baseball, Dansby Swanson.
That is true.
Because he's like the only guy in the top 40 that would be eligible for how about that. But he should be acknowledged because I mean he was an average hitter last year. But yeah, he's hitting 333 with a 1017 OPS right now. But kind of what I'm more interested in, especially at this point in the year, is the underlying stuff, and his underlying stuff is looking pretty good. He's significantly underperforming his expected stats, and that's saying something when you have a 1017 OPS. He has a 684 expected slugging, and out of 207 hitters with 100 plus pitches seen, that ranks 8th. He also has a 478 expected WOBA, which ranks 6th out of 207. 13 of his 20 batted balls have been hard hit, which is 65%. And out of 161 hitters with 20 plus batted balls, his hard hit rate is second highest. Along with that, 5 of his 20 batted balls have been barrels, which is 25% of his batted balls. And he is tied for the 8th most total barrels and the 3rd highest barrel rate out of 161 hitters with 20 plus batted balls. Along with that, his walk rate is currently 15% and his chase rate is currently 14%. That is microscopic. And out of 205 hitters with 50 plus pitches seen out of the zone, his chase rate is 4th lowest. So yeah, very good stuff from him. Obviously he's not gonna be over 1000 OPS, but he's someone where, if he gets that OPS north of 800, you're talking about a definite MVP vote getter considering his defense and base running. But if that's like near 850, that's like a legit MVP candidate considering how much he would be able to produce. So really exciting to see some great offense out of Dansby Swanson, and he is getting a
How about that?
But yeah, anything more before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, knocking another couple teams off the list, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because there's so few left.
Yeah, we got 5 down here.
5 down, 25 to go. We're one division of the way through.
That is dope.
If
a
division was made up of the A's, Giants, Dodgers, Cubs, and Royals.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I guess those
It would
are
work
all
out for 3 of those teams.
Those are all Arizona Fall League teams, right? Or not Arizona Fall League, Cactus League.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mixed up my Arizonas.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. Hope you enjoyed
Real
this
quick, one last thing I wanted to add. If you're watching this on, I'm assuming April 8th is the release day. It is the 50th anniversary of Hank Aaron's 715th home run. So shout out to that.
Yeah, shout out Hank Aaron, or Henry Aaron, I think is he preferred to be called. Yeah, obviously historic, historic day. Definitely more for reasons we won't get into, but probably the most celebrated like milestone home run day, of all time, is April 8th, 1974. Yeah, the 50th anniversary. Vin Scully on the call, of course. Historic day. And yeah, it's something that obviously should be celebrated because it was a great day in baseball history, and nothing really was I don't think anything really took away from it.
No, it didn't. I mean, obviously there was a lot of mixed emotion and a lot of uh bigotry that Hank Aaron faced in the wake of passing Babe Ruth's record, and people that sent him death threats and whatnot. But just in the Fulton County Stadium, like it was all love in there. Like no matter what the racial tension was at the time in the Deep South, even if it was almost 20 years post civil rights movement, like Hank Aaron found a way to be beloved by so many in that area. And I mean, I guess it helps to do so when you were the best player, that the city ever had for 9 years at that point,
Yeah, exactly.
regardless of who you are as a person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, shout out Henry Aaron. It was a wonderful moment for baseball for sure. And yeah, obviously should always be remembered. Also, obviously a great player, just consistently hammering home runs year after year into his 40s. And yeah, that's when he
Yeah,
that's
like
when
he played in Major League Baseball from 1954 through 1976, ages 20 through 42, and found a way to hit double-digit homers quite literally every year of his career.
yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy because Hank Aaron, like, I mean, obviously he led the league in homers 4 times in 1957, 63, 66, and 67. Um, but he never like his highest in that season was 47, which is like, Barry Bonds was 73. There were many guys that have hit 60, plenty that have hit 50. Like in terms of single season, he's not super high on the all-time leaderboard, but he just did it so well for so long.
Yeah,
And,
it's
because of that 755 total.
yeah, the accomplishment was a mark of his consistency for sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, I remember, yeah, when we went to the Hall of Fame, like one of the things I made sure to get a picture of, and one thing that actually like kind of almost struck me because I was just familiar with that clip was the full uniform
Yep.
Henry Aaron wore when he hit that home run, and I was like, "Oh wow." Like he hit number 715 in this.
That's probably the most historic piece of memorabilia they have in that building. I would guess it's probably up there.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Um, as far as moments go,
Like, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the like not just the jersey, the full uniform.
yeah,
They have his
exactly.
cleats, they have his batting helmet, like they have everything that was on his body during that moment.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Um, I'll have to get back there at some point. It's a beautiful museum over there in
Yeah, it is.
Cooperstown. All right, but yeah, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you were listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out all the features, all the shorts, all the guest interviews. It's all in a playlist. Check out interviews from Chris Rose, Jeff Passan, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, among many others. Also, follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. And follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.